What's up, gamers? We've got a fun one for you today because this is one that is kind of showcasing a newer player to Modern. So our Dredge pilot is, I say newer to Modern, I mean newer to our shop playing Modern and borrowing a lot of people's decks. So this is a week they're playing Dredge. We're fighting against Mono Black Scam, and it's nice to showcase some different decks. Modern doesn't feel like a diverse format right now. I know, especially in the sense people are had started to do the RCQ grind, and we're dealing with Nadu and how oppressive that was. But now we're in this stage of what do we do in a post-Nadu world? What does that look like? Is it time to bring back other older decks? Now we can be able to see Dredge versus Mono Black Scam. I mean, Mono Black's got like 3 decks, right? We've got Mono Black Scam, which is like a discard grief stuff. We've got a control-y Mono Black deck with Cabal Coffers. And then we've got our of course, the Necro Dominance Mono Black stuff. This is more of the discard-oriented scam route, which when you start seeing, hey, thought seizing your opponent and seeing what they've got can be dangerous. Like in this case, you're being like, wow, I got lucky and there's, the Shriekhorn in there that I can take. But, the whole goal of the Dredge deck is to get things in the graveyard and then start dredging, milling them away, and going from there. So we do get a nice little setup here. We're seeing a lot of it. Many Dredge players try to put their graveyards and stuff in very different orders. Sometimes they just lay them out like in front of them. And there's a lot of ways you can do it. But there's our land. Really, we're hoping to get our Narcomoebas into the graveyard from our library. We're hoping to be able to get our prize amalgams out off of that as well. Like there's a lot of things that we're hoping to hit when we start getting some good mills. But one of the cool things that the Dredge deck gets to utilize now is Wonder. So if you guys aren't familiar with that, I mean, most people know what Anger is. If you've played Commander, things like that, you know of this card. But Wonder's great because it gives all of your creatures flying. So you kind of are building this go wide deck, and then you're going to be flying over things. But what is our Mono Black Scam player going to do and utilize things? I mean, she does have something that makes things better in the main board than most players, and having access to things like Dauthi Voidwalkers. So, all right, we're in the setup stage here. Dredge player getting themselves ready. And there we go, Dauthi Voidwalker. So this is what we're talking about of how this main deck card is so good. If an opponent's card would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. If your goal is to self-mill and fill your graveyard up, you are no longer able to do that because Dauthi Voidwalker will exile that card, preventing you from being able to do the namesake of the deck. There's a fetch, which will cause it to be exiled. I don't know what main deck options are available. I mean, Conflagrate is one of those that many Dredge decks still run. As like some lists are running what's that one? Dark Blast. So you'd have to use 2 of them in order to do that. But yeah, Conflagrate. I mean, some lists are running like a 1 of in there, maybe 2 of. Back in the day, many players would run too. But we're gonna start doing some like, hey, here's a Golgari here's our Golgari Thug. I wanted to say Grave Troll. That is definitely not around. The only card in Modern to be banned, unbanned, then banned again. Only card to be banned twice. We did a whole video on that in case anybody wanted to see about the history of some ban list stuff. It's fun to make those videos. They just take a lot of work, so they're few and far between on the channel, but we might be working on putting some out in this fall, this winter time. That's usually around the time when we start doing more of those videos because they're fun to work on the scripts and do the editing for that. There's the Hardcast Wonder. That'll at least be nice to help deal with the Liliana. All right, uptick. Everybody will discard a card. Here's the Shadowed Dothy coming in for 3 unblockable. Unless, of course, have a shadow creature that you've been hiding in your deck, which most people do not run shadow creatures. And here's a Bowmaster. Yeah, that's why things get a little crazy with this deck. Is, oh, hey, here's a second Bowmaster. Let's really make sure that Wonder is gone. And so you might be sitting here, it's like, okay, what can the Dredge player do now? Really, they have to hit a Conflagrate. A Stinkweed Imp is not bad. It does not protect us against the Dothy, but we're really just like, okay, we've got to hit 2 Dark Blasts and a Conflagrate. So 3 cards. You can't even utilize your Dredge mechanic that you'd like to because none of your Dredge creatures can go to the graveyard. And we see our Mono Black Scam player. She's going to be searching up for the Shadow Spear. There is also, I want to say 2 8-racks in the list as well. Of course, all the lists and decks you see on the channel can be featured up on our Moxfiled link in the description. You guys can check it out. Feel free to follow us over there too to know about new decks that are going live up on the channel. But yeah, let's scoop it up. Our Dredge player is ready to get to the sideboard and really kind of hope for some additional hate, right? So, I mean, let's try to think about what could our Dredge player have in their board to be able to bring in here. Maybe Lightning Axes is decent. Yeah, I don't even know if they're running Lightning Axe right now in theirs. Leyline of Sanctity is hit or miss. Some players will run it just for access to anti-targetable stuff, like, oh, I don't want you to take certain cards with Thoughtseize. But we do have the Leyline. Okay, so it is the Leyline. We are going to be getting our Watery Grave here. Now, there is that bit to note we've talked about as a newer player to Modern. It is your weekly, so you will be seeing sometimes players learning the game. That's part of the fun. I see a lot of people that might get upset about, oh, what? You let them do that? It's your weeklies. It's okay to be forgiving during this stage to get people used to it, at least understanding the decks a little bit better. There's the Thoughtseize. We're going to definitely get that out of the way here. But so we did this little rollback here of, oh, I should have had a pregame effect. Look, it is in my opening hand. You okay with me placing it out? And yeah, our Mono Black Sand player, she had no problem. She says, yes, it's a weekly. Let's do it. It's not an RCQ. It's not an SCG event. You know, help teach new players to get into 60-card formats like Modern because it's great. All right, Pithing Needle. What do we name here? I mean, what do you want to name? Like, I don't know. Is I don't feel like there's a good enough answer for Pithing Needle or for thing to name off a Pithing Needle. Maybe you could be able to name that artifact that was milling, but like, is that really the line you want? I don't know. We see a grave or Golgari Thug. Keep wanting to say grave troll. Golgari Thug is here on the battlefield. No ways to really get going on the mill adventures. So let's get to the beatdown plan. Here's 1 damage. Breeding pool. Losing 2 life. Down to 13. All right, tapping. Okay, an imp. So these dredge creatures are not what you want to see on the battlefield, but having them out that could potentially die is fine. Also helps us if our opponent starts playing things like planeswalkers or stuff like that. Or it also, Stinkweed Imp is a blocker against that lovely little man land there. Just tip damage coming across. Oh my gosh, another Stinkweed Imp. Here's the army of imps. The 1 power creatures coming across. All right, hard cast the Grief. Cannot target though because of the Leyline. So that was the nice little, hey, I'm playing this. That way I have a blocker. That way I also have a threat against you that I can start swinging in. But swing these 2. We'll take the 2. We're not worried about it. We don't want to put the Thug into the graveyard. But Thought Scour. Tome Scour, not Thought Scour. Thought Scour gives you the mill 2, draw a card. This one is mill 5 cards from target players. Used to be a budget mill card back in the day. In like old school blue-black mill decks would run a couple of them. Now it's become a useful tool in Dredge for the self-mill. Get this going. Turn 1, great to see. So then on your following turn, you can immediately start dredging. Shadow Spear, equipped to the Grief, having the ability to have menace, makes things nice. So that was one of those things of, oh, I guess I should have swung with a Stinkweed Imp or kept both of them back to double block here. But we see a big life total swing off the Grief Shadow Spear equip. But it's, I love the Pithing Needle underneath the Grief. Like, oh, I equipped it with this, but really we know it's the Shadow Spear equip. All right, do we have any dredging? One of the nice things with the dredge deck is when you're milling and you're hitting those things, like especially the creeping chills back to back to back, it feels so good. It's so swingy in that regard. If you're like, I'm gonna drain you for 3 right here, gain 3, drain 3, like. All right, Silver Smoot Ghoul. Silver Smoot Ghoul, 3/1. We do get to see our Orcish Bowmaster come out and respond to this. We'll just pop that out. Now, what's great about Silver Smoke Ghoul is we were talking about the Creeping Chill. It is able to come back from the graveyard, turn it from the graveyard to the battlefield, tap if you gain 3 life. We just so happen to have a way to do that with the Creeping Chills, but we got to hit those Creeping Chills. So still doing the poking stuff here. Like we should be utilizing 2 of our blockers, our creatures, to help us. But now things get really bad. Dauthi Voidwalker coming out, and we're going to get into this potential trying to close the game out here. We can do Imp, block the Bowmaster here at least. Let's see how much we got. 4, 5, 6, 7. What's this? 2? Or did we go to 9 from that? I wasn't paying enough attention to life totals. I was just trying to math out and count how much damage we'd be taking. All right. That's nice. Legion's End will strip away the Dauthi Void Rocker here. And then we got to check the hand for any additional cards that are going to be coming out. I like the Legion's End. All right. Legion's End, the name of it? Yeah. It's like 50 cents. That's crazy. But yeah, exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less, and all the creatures that player control with the same name of that creature. Then that player reveals their hand and exile all cards of the same name from their hand and graveyard. But of course, you know. All right, now we got caught up. Hey, that's exile. That's gone. You may not have that anymore. Activations. All right, now we can jump in the Wave of Grief. Do this. I mean, we can block them all, really, here. I mean, we'll take 1 damage off the army. That's fine. Now, Stinkweed Imp has extra bonus attacks. When it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So, Grief should be dead. The Mishra's Factory should be dead. Yeah. Okay, now we're getting that caught up. Hey, this has the added bonus text. Look, when this deals combat damage to a player, or to a creature, destroy that creature. All right, now do we get the swings? Are we going to hit some Creeping Chills? We see some self-milling happening off camera. That's okay. It happens. Oh, we hit 1 Creeping Chill. Don't forget, Stinkweed Imp has that big Dredge 5, so a little bit of big swing. We must have hit 2 off of that, which is nice. That's what I'm talking about. That big life total swing of like, oh, I'm almost dead. Just kidding. I'm back in it. Now I have that flexibility to kind of go. Ooh, there's a Not Dead After All in hand, so we could have used that against the Grief, but it's fine, right? It all works out in the end. All right, is this the graveyard here? Looks like the graveyard of our Dredge player. Believe we're hitting the Otherworldly Gaze flashback right now. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top of your library in any order. So it's kind of like Surveil, right? But you get to do it in any order, right? So you can be like, oh, I want to keep all 3 on top in this specific order. But, hey, Silver Smoke Ghoul comes back on the end step because we gained some life this turn. Oh, we had 2 in there. Yeah, that's part of the reason why you see a lot of Dredge players. If you're considering building the deck or playing the deck in paper, you know, why a lot of Dredge players lay their graveyard out so much so they can see the visuals and actively notice, oh, this will trigger and come back. This one will come back, and, you know, you have those interactions like that. All right, Shadow Spear, Adventures. Let's send a 3 damage across. Here's 3 more mana for another Stinkweed Imp, and we'll pass. Let's go searching up, find another land. Do we get anything worthwhile here? Another land. That's not worthwhile. A Thoughtseize that we can't use. I like the Tiny Bones playmat. I don't know. I always like seeing what playmat players pick and use and bring with them. All right, we're going to dredge this thug. That's what we see taking place now. Yeah, I mean, might as well start sending the team. Here's 6 damage coming across. All right, Manland will help a little bit for blockers and closing things out. We're basically trying to gain some life here. Hey, just in case, let's make sure we can kill off this orc army 100%. I mean, you might argue, well, why'd you have to do it like that? But consign damage, so one of them will die. Gain 2 life there. Yeah, one of the imps will die. We'll be in the graveyard here. Easy to miss things like that. All right, you're like, oh, normally it's a 1 powered thing, but it gets the plus 1/+1 from the Shadow Spear. Oh, interesting. Utilizing the not dead after all on the Manland. That's an interesting line. Does it get a wicked roll? It does. So when this creature dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a wicked roll token attached to it. Creature gets +1/+1. When this aura is put into the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So technically, the aura would fall off as soon as the land no longer becomes a creature. But it's okay. The game's pretty much wrapped up. So we saw a little bit of like lines here, a little bit of like learning curves, but it's nice to be able to showcase a match like this on camera for players that are like, oh, Modern's intimidating, I don't want to learn, I don't want to get it. It's okay. It's all right to make mistakes. It's okay to get out there and try to learn a new deck, try to learn a new format, you know, especially at LGS that has players that are kind of welcoming and want to kind of help teach you. It's great. If you don't have it at your LGS, there are plenty of people online that will do webcam magic with you for Modern. I'm one of them. I'll happily play Modern with people, whether it's Moto online, whether it's in person. I just like being able to play Magic with people. But now we're tied up. Things are 1-1 for both the players here. Going into game 3. So really it's like your mono black scam. You're hoping to be able to get the Dothy Voidwalker. You're hoping to be able to stick that and just kind of be off to the races. We see some removal spells, a Fatal Push. We see a Dothy in hand for a mono black scam player. We're starting off with a Grief. Hey, can I strip away one of your cards? And you're hoping, okay, we can, oh, okay. Not dead after all, we'll strip off 2 cards. So a Narcomoeba, we see this. So this is an interesting hand, right? You saw the Thought Scour to start with, so that's why it's like, okay, that makes sense to keep it. But there's also, I think, like 4 lands. Mulliganing is one of those things that, like, it's a skill in of itself, especially within a 60-card format. Like, it becomes easier. I'd say Commander is the easiest format to mulligan, right? You go, do I have 3 lands? All right. Nope. All right, let's mulligan. Where there's plenty of decks in Modern where you're like, I don't need 3 lands. If I have 2 lands, I'm golden. But 4 lands is often that, like, too much, with the couple exceptions, right? If you're playing a control list or something like that, and you're like, oh, I got 4 lands in my hand, you might be pretty happy. What an explosive start, though, from the Mono Black Scam player. She was able to get out double Dothy. She was able to do the grief with the Not Dead After All. Like, this clock is crazy. Pink, let's do this. All right. So, again, we're in this awkward spot now that it says, okay, we're taking 4 damage guaranteed from the grief. We're taking 3 damage from the Dothy. We're taking 3 more damage from the other Dothy. That it's like we're lethal on board. Plus the Shadow Spirit there. So it's like just nuts. I don't think there are any answers available, but it's one of those things, again, you're new to the format, you're learning the game, you're trying to find the lines and kind of learn a deck, especially if you're learning a new deck. There are moments and points where you're like, is there anything that I can do here? Because you need to have 2 creatures to block grief, right? It's got the Menace. Both Dothys have Shadow, so they can only be blocked by other creatures with Shadow. If like you're not being able to get any dredge mechanics going, you're not able to get any ways of being able to, you know, utilize the power of the deck when Dothy's out. So it's tough where you're just like in this like non-boat situation like that, where you're just like, and that happens every now and again where you're like, oh, I'm playing this deck and I just get hosed out by this one card, and it's very specific where it's not maybe the most popular card, not many people are running it, but it's like when it happens, you're just like, feels bad moment. And that sometimes happens when you're getting into the 60 card format, and why some players might be like, I hate it. All right. That's it. That's a nice little learning game for everybody watching at home. Thanks for tuning in and watching, everybody. I hope you like the Dredge. Dredge deck might be up on camera a little bit more in the future now that Nadu's, you know, not the most powerful thing, but we will see. Let us know what other decks you'd like to see on camera. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everybody. And I'll see you all next game.